Centrist political commentator Piers Morgan and conservative actor Dennis Quaid said some pretty strange things to try to justify voting for Donald Trump in the upcoming election, and we have to talk about it. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. All right, friends, we have one clip to look at here. It's about 3 minutes long. It's during a broader interview between Piers Morgan and Dennis Quaid, who is a legendary actor. There's no question about it. And for about 3 or 4 minutes, they turn to the topic of Donald Trump. Now, Quaid is a well-known conservative actor, which is fine. And I'll say, as far as pro-Trump actors or pro-Trump activists that I've seen, Quaid seems to be one of the nicer ones based on how he comports himself here. But during the clip, he and Piers Morgan say some pretty bizarre things and engage in what I believe to be revisionist history and double standards to try to justify voting for Trump in the upcoming election. So we're going to play the clip and unpack it together.
What do you think of Trump?
I myself, I think I think I'm going to vote for him.
Really?
Yeah, in the next election. Yes, I am.
Are you ready for the blowback?
Well, yeah.
Which inevitably comes with Trump?
Well, you know, I think in this election, everybody's got to, I think they're going to take a side or whatever, but it just seems to me, it just makes sense. I was ready not to vote for Trump until what I saw is more than politics. I see a weaponization of our justice system.
Yeah.
And a challenge to our Constitution, us as Americans, that I don't think we're going to have.
So I want to stop right there. Like this right out the gate was so bizarre to me. So again, we talked about this. We played the clip. Donald Trump, as the sitting president of the United States in 2020, repeatedly and publicly demanded that his attorney general, Bill Barr, and his Department of Justice, led by Bill Barr, prosecute Joe Biden, a political rival, and Barack Obama, a former president.
But these people should be indicted. This was the greatest political crime in the history of our country, and that includes Obama, and it includes Biden.
Remember all that? So apparently, Dennis Quaid and Piers Morgan don't remember that. And many other conservatives and Republicans and MAGA Republicans have conveniently forgotten the many, many times that Donald Trump tried to get his Department of Justice to go after his political rivals. We also have other reports that before the election of 2020, during Trump's presidency, that he quietly leaned on Justice Department officials to investigate, again, President Obama in particular, but also Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden as well. For God's sakes, he threatened to withhold congressionally approved foreign aid to Ukraine unless Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, agreed to investigate Joe Biden, an American political rival of Trump. So the weaponization of the Justice Department was a feature of Trump. Trump campaigned in 2016, 2020, and now in 2024 on jailing his political opponents. So if Dennis Quaid and Piers Morgan really had a principled opposition to the notion that they think they're criticizing here, why aren't they condemning all of that? Well, the real answer is because they grade Trump on a curve. It's okay for Trump to publicly call for and even try to facilitate the prosecution of his political enemies. But it's not okay for Trump in turn to be prosecuted. It's an indefensible, hypocritical asymmetry. It's a double standard that we have to constantly call out and categorically reject.
And, Trump is the most investigated person probably in the history of the world. And they haven't been able to really get him on anything.
And this whole Stormy Daniels thing to me.
Even this right here, before they go on to the Manhattan trial, which, by the way, is in the closing arguments phase, a verdict will be rendered soon. Trump has been highly investigated. There's no question. He's facing prosecutions in Georgia, right, for trying to steal the 2020 election. He's faced them in New York. He's facing 2 federal investigations as well. Indictments from special counsel Jack Smith with respect to the willful retention of national defense information. And again, his attempts to steal the 2020 election. But it could be because Donald Trump is a uniquely criminal person with respect to contemporary politics. And you say they haven't gotten him on anything, but I don't know what Dennis Quaid is talking about here. He's been found guilty of fraud multiple times, number one, in New York. Number two, he's been found guilty of defamation and liable for sexual abuse of E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s. As a matter of fact, the judge very specifically said that in terms of common parlance, Trump raped E. Jean Carroll. He was found liable for sexual abuse, guilty of defamation, guilty of fraud. He's very likely, not certain, but he's very likely to be found guilty in the Manhattan election interference case that they're about to talk about. And in the other cases, he just hasn't faced trial yet. He may not face trial if he becomes president and shuts these investigations down. So this idea that we haven't got him on things, it's just categorically not true.
Me, it's so kind of pathetic. I mean, whatever happens, as we sit here now, that we're going to find out in a few days whether he's guilty or not guilty. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't.
If anything, if he's found guilty, it'll probably help him more.
Yeah, even the way you just said it made it seem like that trial or guilty or not guilty is about Stormy Daniels,
Right.
which it's not.
No, it's not.
And in fact, what is the crime? I still can't figure it out.
Well,
well, the crime, neither can they, because they haven't said what it is. They took a misdemeanor that had run out of its time and turned it somehow trying to turn it into a felony, and but they won't even say what that is.
Do you have to like Trump to vote for him?
No.
Do you like him personally?
Well, look, I was in the last. It is in the last campaign and in 16 and in 20. I found myself going, "Oh, please don't do that. Please don't say that." It's like these things have come out of his mouth, and but as president, the only thing I liked about Trump was everything he did.
Right.
What he did with Korea, with Rocket Baby, the way he defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. People don't even remember it happened so fast. How he stood up for us overseas, and China, and the way he responded to China, he stands up to people, and that's what makes him a leader.
So even that, just tons of revisionist history. Okay, so first Dennis Quaid says, well, Korea. Well, what did Trump do with North Korea? He didn't get a peace treaty. He didn't get them to denuclearize. He didn't get them to disarm. He didn't get them to normalize relations with South Korea. If anything, he elevated and legitimized an otherwise isolated authoritarian regime. I mean, after Trump agreed to meet and take his photo with Kim Jong-un was getting high-profile meetings with other sympathetic leaders who previously had not been interested in meeting him because they were worried it would infuriate the United States, being Russia, Vladimir Putin, and China, Xi Jinping. We got nothing from Trump's debacle with North Korea. North Korea continues to test ballistic missiles and continued to do so on Trump's watch. He says defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. Well, there are still ISIS offshoots around the world. And okay, fair enough. We want to give Trump credit there. But what else? I mean, President Biden killed the mastermind of 9/11, Ayman al-Zawahiri. You don't hear about that. Talking about China, what did Trump do with China? He initiated a very costly trade war with China, which hurt American consumers and American farmers. What did he do? He says he stood up for us on the world stage. How? He publicly, constantly praised and venerated, the likes of Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. I mean, to their faces in public, he constantly denigrated the United States by comparison. When people would refer to Putin as a killer, Trump would insult the United States. I mean, it was true what he said, the fact that the United States has a checkered past, but he wasn't praising the United States and going after right-wing or authoritarian leaders abroad. He was constantly denigrating us, our intelligence agencies, our people, for the sake of these foreign authoritarians. I don't understand, but that's why I don't know if there is a cogent case to be made here. We'll give him a few more minutes, see if he comes up with something.
Rather than what I kind of compare it to what was going on in Jimmy Carter's administration, where we were trying to be everybody's friend and pal. And there's some evil people and bad actors in this world. And so, people might call him an asshole, but he's my asshole.
Right.
Well, I don't know if we want to spend too much time talking about your asshole, Dennis Quaid. Sounds like you should see a proctologist or something like that. But the thing is, even going back to what Dennis Quaid said earlier, which is that this is an abuse of the Constitution, the fact that Donald Trump is being prosecuted, it was Donald Trump who said that the Constitution should be suspended in order to take Biden out of office. It was like 2022, take Biden out of office and put Trump back in to finish Biden's term. Suspend the Constitution if necessary. President Biden has said nor suggested nothing like that. And yet, this is where we are. So to me, this whole thing is rife with revisionist history. And even that sentiment there at the very end, which is that Trump is a bad guy, but he's a bad guy for me. There's no evidence of that. None. What has Donald Trump tangibly done for the American people? He inherited a pretty good economy from Barack Obama. For 3 years, he mostly continued those economic trends. Then in the 4th year of his administration, he presided over a disastrous mishandling of COVID, lied about the virus, suppressed information about the virus, constantly undermined his own medical advisors and their best practices. He, when he did speak up, would recommend the most ridiculous things, bleach injections, UV lights. He wouldn't actually follow through, with a consistent message of social distancing, mask wearing, things like that. He didn't use the bully pulpit to rally Republican leaders and Republican voters to take the virus seriously the way a real leader would, the way President Biden attempted to, right? Let's unite in the face of this crisis. Trump didn't do that. What did he do? The economy tanked on his watch as a result. Again, costly trade wars with China. He gave a $2 billion tax cut for the rich, and maybe a multimillionaire actor like Dennis Quaid benefited from that. So fair enough. Maybe in that respect, he's your guy. But what else did he do? Doesn't seem like quite a robust record on which to run. And that's why I just don't think there's really a good faith, cogent argument for voting for Trump. And even though Piers Morgan is pretty sympathetic to Trump and to Trump winning again, like even Piers couldn't really offer anything there. All they could do was complain about the so-called weaponization of the Justice Department, conveniently forgetting all those times that Trump ran on publicly weaponizing the Justice Department and all those times he actively tried to weaponize the Justice Department, and forgetting the fact that we have no evidence, none, that President Biden has ordered or pressured the prosecution of Donald Trump. These are all convenient facts, but facts nonetheless, and I think they work against Dennis Quaid and Piers Morgan. Let me know what you think in the comments.